Kenai. Sometimes I come away after I couldn't pull myself away from its gleaming angles, textured pores, its glacial flower seething against the banks, the boils that mushroom into blossoms of shined glass, reflecting the 2 a.m. sky of northern summers, gull calls and a pair of ducks needling upriver. And I'm full of its speed and deceptions, the giddy chop of its raised spine, turquoise slide grinding boulders smooth. Sometimes I drive along its slithering wind, asphalt parallel to its curves, a dead echo to its rumbling glide. Sometimes I want to turn the wheel, strip down to my true life, and dissolve in its swallowed light, its sheer headlong drive. It is always untangling itself from itself, like a koan. Its inhuman babble, the answer to no question. Its inscrutable bottom, my life has never touched.
When the poet John Haynes moved to Alaska in 1947, he built a cabin south of Fairbanks, hoping to paint scenes of the northern wilderness. His paint froze, he later said, so he turned to words. "Who comes here," he would later write, "to this whiteness, this far and frozen place in search of something he cannot name? Not wealth, it may be, but a fortune of the spirit, a freshness denied him in the place he came from." Haynes died in 2011, and his legacy is strong in Alaska. I wanted to see just what it was about Alaska that has inspired so much powerful and often neglected poetry, and I wanted to hear from contemporary Alaskan poets, to explore their work and understand how the Alaskan landscape shapes their poems. I set out from my very different world of New York and connected with Ken Hart, a poet and friend, who spends his summers in Anchorage. Together we headed down the Kenai Peninsula toward Seward, Alaska, where I asked him to show me some of the places that have moved him, and to read a poem that makes him feel connected to the land.
Lost. Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger, must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen. It answers, "I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again, saying, 'Here.' No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you."
Lost or not, we were back on the road. The voices of contemporary poets in Alaska are as diverse as I expected them to be. I wanted to find Elena Kalitiak Davis, whose poems I admire. She was funny, charming, a great host, and a damn good ping-pong player. Here's her poem, Corruptive. The dark wood after the dark wood. The cold after cold in April's false November. In that second, worser place, more gone, less there. But in that lurid present, cast and held, rooted, kept, like some old false-buried yew, just against the door leading to preferment shut, no longer believing in still, by some few means, method, could be, but for the bad day set, left, leaning atop bad day, out and unranked, toothache, wronged, rankled, corruptive thing, ill-wishing, iniquitous, clipped, unhoped, stripped, just plain, thin. Dare thy commit this final fatal sin. God, my God, I am displeased by spring. We couldn't stay long with Elena. I still had the ghost of John Haynes on my mind, and to find him, I knew I'd have to walk a few miles in his shoes. So I did. Ice Child by John Haynes. Cold for so long, unable to speak, yet your mouth seems framed on a cry or a stifled question. Who placed you here and left you to this lonely eternity of ash and ice, and himself returned to the dust, fields, the church, and the temple? Was it God, the sun god of the Incas, the imperial god of the Spaniards, or only the priests of that god, self-elected, voice of the volcano that speaks once in 100 years? And I wonder, with your image before me, what life might you have lived, had you lived at all? Whose companion, whose love? To be perhaps no more than a slave of that earthly master, a jug of water on your shoulder, year after stunted year, a bundle of reeds and corn, kindling for a fire on whose buried hearth. There were furies to be fed then, as now, blood to fatten the sun, a heart for the lightning to strike. And now the Furies walk the streets, a swarm in the milling crowd. They stand to the podium, speak of their coming ascension. Through all this drift and clamor, you have survived. In this cramped and haunted effigy, another entry on the historian's dated page. Under the weight of this mountain, once a god, Now only restless stone, we find your interrupted life, placed here among the trilobites and shells, so late unearthed. And yet John Haynes wasn't the only ghost I was hearing. What was I doing making something called the American poem? What could that word mean, American? And does it not have as part of its meaning the displacer, if not the oppressor? I couldn't help but hear the echoes of voices native to this land. The Athabaskan peoples called the Kenai Peninsula the Good Land, and perhaps it was, even more than it is now. D.H. Lawrence, who came to the United States in 1922 with that typical American dream of setting up his own utopia, understood the sins inherited by the American soul. One day, he wrote, the ghosts must be appeased, the spirit of the place atoned for. Then the true passionate love for American soil will appear. And yet to be in this place, with its intimacies and its immensities, was, for me, to feel the possibilities of healing and restoration. As I left Alaska, as I thought about the people who had guided me and welcomed me, and the land that had done the same, I kept calling to mind lines by the American poet Mary Tallmountain, a poet of native Alaskan heritage. Did you remember Mother Earth's lessons of the being with no name? How in distant time the people talked with animals in different voices, played among Alaska's bluebells, roses, small spruce trees, mastodon cliffs. You dance bright behind my eyes. Suga, brother, I see you in that spirit-given spring, dancing for the people, arms open like furry wings.